Howdy folks, I'm Rebecca Jolly, the Jolly Alchemist, and I am here today to give a neutrino forecast for Friday the 17th of October 2025. Here on the 17th, we are hitting the fourth line of the grouping of duration. So we're looking at the nature of the 32nd gate, this gate of continuity, duration, staying stable through changes as part of a formula for success. So 32 line 4 is right is might, to maintain one's principles in times of change. And of course, this is the fourth line. So in the fourth line, we're really looking at externalizing for the very first time. We're looking at that awareness in the hexagram that, oh, there's people out there. There's other things besides just my own process, which has been happening in lines 1, 2, and 3. And now it's like, okay, it's taking in something else. And of course, this gate of continuity is really about the allocation of power. Remember, we talked about the 32 being the financial officer of this tribal aspect of what's going on here, trying to get to the throat that way. And so that 32 has power, whether it's money or resources or something. So it's really dealing with the nature of power in a very practical kind of way. What can I do with this power? What needs to be done with this power? And of course, when we get into the fourth line, we are talking about people who have a certain kind of fixation with them. And in this case, for this gate, that fixation is a fixation on power, and that's why right is might. If I have the power, I'm right. Whether you like it or not, you pretty much have to do what I say. There's also an aspect of them being able to maintain their principles as long as their security is not threatened. So if their security is threatened, then it can degrade into a kind of a situation where it's like, well, I can't use the power unless you do what I say, or I'm going to make sure that all the people I work with that I have power over are willing to do whatever I say, whether they agree with it or not. And so there can be a little bit of a misappropriation there with how that power is used. Of course, that's the danger with all of these very strong, powerful tribal energies, energies that have to do with money and influence and control. It's it's a power that needs to be used for good and not for evil. So that is what we're getting into here with this 32nd gate, and especially in that fourth line where it's about, oh, there's other people to influence and have power over. Oh, okay, well, let me get into that. So our earth activation is 42, line 4. 42 being, again, this gate here out of the sacral center and this channel of cyclical learning. And so this is maturation and the ending that goes with the gate 53 beginnings. So it's really wrapping around and bringing things back together. Line 4 is called the middleman, the maturity to bring growth through mediation. And Ross said, you might as well call this line the midwife, although he did also call it the middleman, because it's very much of an energy of being a midwife, being in between different systems and finding the right way to use and balance the energy between those systems. And he said that in the course of his readings and experimentations, he had run across no less than 7 midwives carrying this energy right here. So this is very much in between kind of energy. It's the energy to provide resources by being in the middle, he says, yeah? But there is a danger there that energy can be misused. Because they're fourth lines, they're really friendly, they're nice, they're wanting to maintain harmonious relationships. He uses the example of a midwife being distracted by the desire to have a harmonious relationship. And so instead of putting the focus of her energy where it belongs, which is on doing the midwifing and bringing a new being into the world, that energy could get subverted to being something like, oh, well, I want this mother to like me. And he says, yeah, this is, when it's not done right, this is an energy that ends up with your surgeon being so into the groove of his song that he ends up leaving a pair of scissors inside of your body while he's, grooving out and cutting you up. So that's something to be aware of with this middleman energy. It can be used or misused again. So those are the energies there. And of course, we have an underlying shift because our 32 and our 42 are the same that they've been for lines 1, 2, and 3. And of course, the beginning of 4. But in the juxtaposition cross, which we have here, which is the cross of conservation, and then into the left angle, that underlying energy or the imprint that was given to this person carrying this energy, or these people who carry this energy 3 months before this date, that energy is shifting from a focus on attention to details and understanding the mysteries of the universe to being 56. So storytelling, looking for stimulation, and gate 60. So holding on to traditions. And being recognizing of the power of limitation. So in that juxtaposition cross, he says what you have is the same 32-42 that we've just been talking about, but now the underlying focus is shifting into wanting stimulation in times of decrease or limitation. So he says these are the kinds of people that will they're conservationists. They really, really want to conserve. This is the most conservative line that there is, he says, or conservative gate, this gate 32, this gate of conservation. And of course, on one level, it is about staying stable through changes. On another level, it's the not a fascination, but like a driving need to make sure that the resources are there so that the community can use them when they want to. And so Ross says this is kind of a thing where you have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to go into business with these people around anything that has to do with a fad, because they're going to want to really hold on to it. And that's not something, it doesn't go together with the energy of a fad. So he uses the example of going into business with somebody who's selling hula hoops and so convinced that hula hoops are an awesome thing, and then they end up stockpiling a warehouse with 1 billion hula hoops and not wanting to let it go. They want to conserve it because they're saying, there's such a good thing, it really should swing back around again. And then they hold on to it, and it can get kind of stuck. Whereas they really need to be able to find the right things to conserve. So he says on the good side of it, or the upside of it, if you want to look at it, here's where you have all the most really focused people who are concerned with conserving the planet, and that's a good thing. So here we have our conservative tie. I have several ties, even a specific tie skirt that I made that was all about the Nature Conservancy. Nature Conservancy makes a whole series of animal ties, and when I saw that we were moving into the cross of conservation, I was like, oh, I need one of my conservation ties, but they're not organized well, so I'm just digging in this huge box of ties, and I was like, I already used the whale one, damn it. When I found this one, I was like, perfect conservation tie. There we go. So, yeah. And there is a name technically on the 64 keys list for this juxtaposition cross of conservation, but it's in gray, which means that they're not sure if this person is an actual juxtaposition cross, and I think they're not. The person is Eminem Mathers or Slim Shady, the American rapper. I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of the qualities of conservation there. I think maybe that this person is actually uh, born earlier in the day. So it's just one of those really shifting days. So if they were born in the morning, they're going to be cross of Maya. If they're born right at noon when they took the reading, it would be the juxtaposition cross. And if they're born in the afternoon or the evening, then that would fall in the cross of limitation, which is the left angle cross we're getting ready to move into tomorrow. So I think that our friend Eminem is one of the other two, which would mean we do not have in 64 keys an actual well-known example of this cross of conservation. But knowing that, if somebody wanted to, it wouldn't be that difficult to go and look up famous conservationists in our history and see somebody who actually carries this cross. But nobody's done that work yet. Human design itself has not been accepted as an actual science enough to have people really engaging with it that in a fourth gate experimental kind of way yet. But maybe in the days ahead, we'll see. All right, so anyway, that's the juxtaposition cross that we will be moving into in the next few days. That's the nature of juxtaposition. This juxtaposition, of course, there's only one of them all year long, and it's a 4-hour window, so we don't get very many of these people. All right, let's do people energies. Our moon starts off in 59, line 4. 59 is our sexual role gate right here, talking about different ways we connect with people. Line 4 in this case is true friendship, the power for non-sexual closeness and intimacy. I have a daughter with this, and she is very, very friendly. Even with her partner, very, very friendly. So Mercury starts off in 1, line 2 with a down arrow. We looked at 1, line 2 yesterday. That's ideals, expression conditioned by beauty and ideals. Of course, this first gate, the most yang and outwardly facing, like just rawr, creative gate that we have, and the down arrow on that is the expression of the self is shaped by desire and passion, which limits the creative potential. Wanting it to be so much that you actually put a cramp on what is. And that will also be moving into the third line, and that is, of course, to keep things going, which we have seen recently because we've been moving through the first gate on 2 of these levels in Mercury and Mars at the same time. So to go over that again, to keep things going, the need for expression independent of success. So that's where it's really swinging back around and away from being swayed in the creative process by desires and passions. Our Venus energy is clipping the very end of 46.6, but really technically it's 18.1. It's one of those ones where the reading took it right on the line. But we already talked about 46.6 yesterday, and that was integrity to reject restrictions. That 46 is, of course, about the nature of luck, serendipity, being in the right time in the right place, and love of the body. And moving into the 18th gate, that is focus on the broken. We've talked about this over and over again, being a difficult energy, but a useful and helpful one for perfecting things and getting them better. 18, line 1 is evolution, conservative principles for gradual evolution, and then it will also go into the second line, which is accepting, to recognize and accept the irreversible. So accepting that not everything can be changed and not, picking your battles on that score. Then we have 1, line 4 in our Mars energy, and that is solitude as the medium of creativity. Okay, and it will move into line 5 as well. That's the power of attraction, to stay with the creative process. Of course, all fifth lines are in some sense seductive, not necessarily sexually seductive, but emotionally seductive. Their ideas can be seductive. They themselves as people can be seductive. And I speak from experience on this one because I have as my profile line that 5, that seductive nature in my unconscious. So I'm very much not doing it on purpose, but I've had a lot of times in my life it happen where I'm just being friendly. I'm not even really thinking about things, but people see me as being seductive. "Oh, you're trying to take my husband. You see me as some kind of a threat," and I'm like, "Huh? I I wasn't even there in my brain." But other people see me being there. That's the fifth line. We do have a global shift happening today, and that is on our Neptune. And it is in retrograde still. So it's moving from 25 line 3 into 25 line 2, the gate 25 being the gate of innocence here, coming out of the G center and connecting with the shock in this channel of initiation. So that 25 line 2 is existentialism, devoted and innocent admiration of the now. We, of course, were experiencing this earlier in the year. I didn't look up exactly when, but it was happening for a long, long time. And we just went out of it. But then when Neptune went into retrograde, it, of course, slowly started eking that dial backwards again until we are here again. But we'll see how long it lasts. Some of these retrogrades have not lasted very long. For instance, the retrograde that we had on the nodes just happened for just like 2 or 3 days. And then retrograde went out. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 days we had that. And then the retrograde went off and poof, all of a sudden it's back up to 22.2 and 47.2, which has been for a long time. 22 is that mistaking style for form. So being a little more a school of etiquette. More concerned with being polite than being authentic. And 47 really bearing the nature of trying to make sense of things, the desire to relieve oneself of mental oppression. So that's where we are again there. And we have that one shifting at the 25 on Neptune, but the other ones are staying stable. And just to review really quickly, we're getting to the end of our time here. They're about attention to detail, crisis, now, healing, and innocent admiration of the now. Like I said, this existentialism. And then gate 60, and that's about traditionalism and keeping things the way they have been. So maintaining structure in our society and in our ways. I did forget to talk about the moon's movements today. And so when the moon is done with the 59th gate, it will move into gate 40. That's the bacon bringer. That's this provider, this one who wants the love of work. And then it'll move into 64, which is our confusion. Awareness of confusion. And so that's collective abstract circuitry. So it's all about receiving images in a jumbled fashion, mostly from the past, and then needing to make sense of all that in the mind itself. And because we have that 47 in the nodes, that will create a mental connection for everyone in the world as the moon passes through gate 64. So we will have this seeker of sense being connected. So there's no guarantee of the actual head actions being connected to the throat, giving the whole world the ability to talk about it, but the whole world will be having this ability to receive impressions. So if you find yourself getting in your mind images from the past and, trying to figure out what does it all mean and putting it together, because they don't arrive in order. They don't arrive with sense already put onto them. That's really what's happening in that 47th gate, is where that's being chewed up and processed in our minds. So if you see that happening, you feel that you don't normally have, drop me a comment and let me know, because I don't have anything in that channel, so it's not a usual way for me to connect, although my partner does have that 47th gate, making sense of confusion. So I've been conditioned by that for over a decade now. Anyway, all right, so our song today is You've Got a Friend by James Taylor, and the reason I chose it is because it really does seem like it's a mediating middleman kind of energy. I'm here, you're ever in need, you're ever down, you're ever troubled, call me, I'll help you out, I'll help you find the other resources, the things you need, and also a very 32 kind of energy, like, this is a power dynamic we have. I'm above you. So come to me when you need the power, and I will provide it for you to be able to rise up. So I thought, okay, well, that's definitely, at least in the neighborhood of the energy we're talking about exploring in the world today. And of course, also the energy that babies born today will be having as an imprint on their whole entire lives. Very interesting to see those things, especially if you actually know a baby who is being born and you're aware of that transit information. Of course, I always tell those people, shit, I'm running over. Mark down the exact time, down to the second if you can, because there's so much more information you can get and know about that person and help them with if you have that birth time. And not having that birth time, I know that very well. But our time is done, so come back tomorrow. We'll look at that fifth line.